So in yesterday's video we've talked a little bit about the loot changes BioWare planned for us, and since then there seems to have been an awful lot of confusion coming from Anthem players. It seems that a lot of people didn't read the patch notes and were expecting something completely different, which is why I wanted to bring a quick video update explaining all of the recent changes, including the loot ones as well as the other changes that have gone through the past 12 hours. But to make a small recap, yesterday we had two quick updates. The first one, which a lot of people confused for being the loot update, dealt with the tethering time for missions, and you should now see an increased amount of time before you get teleported to the rest of your party members. And there's a couple of exploits as well, including the one for the Tyrant Mine, where you could pretty much repeat the end boss over and over again to get these items over and over again by simply exiting to the title screen. And of course there was another one which let players reopen chests that have already been looted, and these were like the biggest exploits of this week, but luckily enough BioWare came in and they kind of fixed them really fast. Later on though is when we had the official loot update, which brought in many of the changes we've talked about yesterday. If you want to check that one out and if you want to see all of the changes, then you can go ahead and check the links down below. But it pretty much reads the following. The patch notes read as this: items will no longer have inscriptions on them that are not appropriate for that specific item. Note, this only applies to items obtained after the patch. Items obtained prior to the hotfix will still have the same inscriptions they had before. Of course, the second one being masterwork crafting costs have been reduced from 25 to 15 masterwork embers. The amount of plants, metal and parts required for crafting a masterwork item have also been reduced. And there's also this message at the bottom, because I see a lot of people still being confused about this. We are still working on the change that Ben Irving had mentioned in this post, where common and uncommon items will no longer drop since players hit level 30, and this was the biggest issue right now. I'm seeing so many threads and even comments on my videos with people saying that they still get white and common items, but that is actually because that particular change didn't actually went through. And there's even a Twitter post from Ben Irving saying that loot changes are live. We had issues with stopping uncommon and common drops at level 30, so that will come later. We didn't want to hold the rest of these changes for that. So that is the main reason why you're still going to see white items and green items in strongholds. That is the reason why I wanted to bring this one up. It was an important change, but there are still many more to come, and especially the ones for the green and the common items are still not yet in the game. Now, one of the things that I see a lot of people also complaining about is that they somehow don't get the god rolls that they were expecting. A lot of people have been expecting that with the new inscription changes they will only start seeing god rolls for their drops, which is completely not the case, and I've explained this in yesterday's video, so let me make it clear. Yes, there are still chances for you to find items that could be improved upon. You might still find items that are not that great, but on average you will find them to be much better than how they were previously. Unlike how it was previously, you're not going to be able to find weapons and skill abilities having completely useless inscriptions on them as it was with the previous patch. So I even brought you a few examples to show you just that. I've run a couple of dungeons since then, I've gotten a ton of items since then, so I can give you a few examples of my own, and so we can go over all of this and explain how everything works. So here, for example, I ran through the Tyrant Mine, got a few items from it, including some masterworks. I got like 3 masterworks, and I've seen a lot of people having better luck with getting masterworks and legendary items. That's not really a change, by the way, that's simply RNG. That is just luck. There's no change to that. If all of a sudden you're starting to see masterwork or legendary items, it's because it's pure luck. Nothing else, nothing more. But let's go over these new changes and what items I've gotten from these drops. So as you can see for over here, we've got a brand new set of masterworks, and one of the first masterworks that dropped for me is this Avenging Herald. As you can see, it has a bunch of stats that are really good for this weapon and some other stats that aren't really that great. So for example, previously you could have gotten a shotgun, for example, with bonuses to a pistol, which was completely useless. That has been since then removed removed, and what we have instead is plus 80% damage bonus as well as the ammo 20% pickup amount. So both of these are actually good to this weapon. They are by no means exaggerated, they are not huge, this is not a god roll, but these are still some very decent inscriptions. Also, the shield plus 15% max is useful for the entire javelin, but I also have this ice 30% damage increase, which might benefit one of my builds, but it might be completely useless to other builds. For example, if I don't run an ice build, this is going to be completely useless, and it's still just a low damage increase of just 3%. It's just that they're not going to ever be completely useless as it was before, and this goes for the gear and the weapons, by the way. I'm going to go over the components in just a bit. Ben Irving even gave an example yesterday, but it seems that a lot of people have ignored it, even though I went over all of this. But yeah, there was an example with the assault rifle not having a specific plus pistol damage inscription because that would be completely useless, but it might have a plus electric damage that might benefit or not your lightning build if you have one. The whole point of Anthem is to get those very powerful inscriptions on your weapons, and you have to get very lucky in order to have that. A lot of people have in the past 24 hours. I've seen some people getting some insane drops even for legendary weapons, and if you grind up a lot of items, if you grind up a lot of the content in the game, eventually you're going to come across some of these weapons. But in the meantime, you won't have such a headache with all of the useless inscriptions that we used to have. On average, I found out that to be the case with probably all of the items that I had dropping. For example, I have this Renery's Charge, which is basically a upgraded Spark Dash. You can see the upgrades on it. In a previous update, this would have been probably useless in terms of inscriptions, but check the inscriptions on this one. This one increases gear speed by 15% and gear charges by 100%. But as you can see, the gear indications are more appropriate to the item that drops. In this case, I'm able to spam this ability much more often with the inscriptions on them, but the range might still vary. You might still find, for example, an item that gives you a low damage bonus, like for example in this case just a 4% increase or a 9% damage increase, but you can also find it anywhere in the range between 1% and 100% or however long it goes. I've seen some items with like 300% damage increase, so all of this is RNG. This is the way these games work. You are supposed to farm a lot again and again and again and again until you find these amazing god rolls. You're not ever going to find anything like this in other games. Any other game out there that you're going to play will always give you very powerful items after putting in a ton of work, and Anthem makes no exception. There's multiple types of builds you can create on every single type of javelin. There's no way you're ever going to find any single item that will be good for every single type of build that you're building. If that makes any sense to you, I hope it does, because I'm going to go over the components that I've mentioned at the beginning of the video. So components are going to be slightly different compared to gear slots as well as the weapons. Unlike those, these can get literally any single type of inscription in the game, which might be beneficial to your current build or it might be completely useless. The changes for the loot system that you have seen in the past 24 hours and that will continue to be applied in the near future are going to be specifically for the gear slots and for the weapons to avoid having useless inscriptions like with the examples that I have given. This same principle doesn't work for components, which are basically like trinkets. They can bring literally any inscription in the game. It can be something really awesome that severely buffs your damage, or it can be something less useful, like for example increasing the thruster speed or like increasing the drop chance of consumables and so on and so forth. Components are like more of a general sort of items. They apply to your entire build, to your entire javelin, so these are like an exception to the rule that we've talked about. Obviously the biggest bonuses to the components themselves are the big effects, the first ones, the first sentences that you're going to read on them. So you're always going to see something like increasing E ability by 60% and also giving you like another 50% cooldown reduction and so on and so forth, depending on what type of component it is. I've also tested the in-game crafting system. It now takes much less crafting materials to craft a masterwork item, which is really awesome. I crafted a few items myself and I did manage managed to get quite a few of them really good with some really good bonuses, especially one of the 1000 Suns I believe dropped with like a 75% damage increase. So yeah, this is basically what I wanted to bring you guys up. I hope I was clear enough. If not, go ahead and comment down below if you still have questions. I'm going to try to answer as many as possible, and there's a lot of people in here who are also going to try to answer as many questions as possible. But that's pretty much all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Anthem content, and I'll see you guys next time.